Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to this presentation. I'm going to talk about tourism in the UK. So visiting the UK for holidays, for vacations. This is tourism. And because I am from the UK, I'm going to give you some advice. Some advice using these modal verbs, okay? Maybe you've seen these before. Should, shouldn't, must, mustn't, have to, and don't have to. So I'm going to give you some advice, some recommendations about things if you visit the UK as a tourist, things you should do, things you shouldn't do, things you must do or mustn't do, things you have to do, and things you don't have to do. Start with what you should do in the UK. So, my recommendations, here they are. I think you should bring a raincoat or an umbrella. This is an umbrella or a raincoat because the weather in the UK is very. I say you should bring a raincoat. Of course, should, if you remember, we use for making recommendations, for giving suggestions or advice, consejos. Okay, so it's a very important word. So I say you should bring a raincoat or an umbrella. You should visit more than just London. There are many interesting places in the UK. Obviously, London is the capital. It is the biggest city. There's many exciting things to do, activities, museums, galleries, events, many things to do in London. Different people. But the rest of the UK has very interesting places as well. It has the Lake District Park, beaches like this, you can see here. So personally, I think it is a good idea that you should leave London. You should see other places outside of London. Okay, when you're in London, you should definitely visit galleries and museums because they are all free, so you don't have to pay to enter the museum. Here's an example of one of the famous museums. It is the National History Museum in London. You can also visit, for example, you should visit the British Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum, Natural History Museum. You should visit the Tate. The Tate is a art gallery, famous art gallery you should visit because they're all free. So you can go for 20 minutes or 5 hours, is your choice. London. Also, if you're in London, you should ride on the upper deck of a red London bus. Here you can see a red London because that is the currency. Here you can see the banknote. You must drive of the road. You can see this car on the left, not on the right. So you must drive on the left hand side of the road. You must do it. Okay, what do you have to do in the UK? So have to is also like an obligation, but it's not as serious as must. It's less serious. It's not because it is the law or anything, it's more an internal obligation. For example, you have to change your currency into pound sterling. So if you have lots of pesos, you have to change them to pounds. You have to bring, traer, llevar, a plug adapter, because the plugs in the UK are like this with 3 points. So you have to bring a plug adapter so you can use your Colombian plugs in the UK. Okay, we can also use have to do something as like a strong recommendation, like should, like you should visit this place, but a stronger recommendation. For example, you have to visit the British Museum. Here it is, because it's great. Or you have to eat fish and chips and afternoon tea, because they are classic food experiences. For example, the equivalent for Colombia, maybe I'd say, you should eat, I don't know, you should eat ajiaco, okay? But you have to eat bandeja paisa, because bandeja paisa is even more famous. Okay, on to what you shouldn't do in the UK. Of course, shouldn't doesn't mean it is illegal or prohibited. It's just my advice for you, my recommendations. For example, you shouldn't talk loud, make noise, hacer ruido, on public transport. People like to be quiet, they like to be silent on public transport. Also, when you make a queue, when you're queuing like this, you shouldn't jump the queue. So if you start at the back, you stay at the back. You can't arrive and jump in the queue here. You have to respect the queue, so you shouldn't jump the queue. You shouldn't arrive somewhere too late, because British people are punctual. So if you say, let's meet at 6 o'clock, British person arrives at 6 o'clock, generally. Also, you shouldn't confuse the UK, the United Kingdom, with England. Because England, you can see England here, is just one part of the UK. The UK is 4 countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So you shouldn't confuse, you shouldn't say England when you mean to say the UK. Because maybe if you say a Scottish person, someone from Scotland, if you say they are English, maybe they will be offended. So be careful. Also, you shouldn't visit Madame Tussauds. It's like a tourist attraction in London. I think it is bad, so my advice is you shouldn't visit. You should do something more interesting. Okay, what you mustn't do in the UK. These are things that are illegal, that are against the law, that are banned. For example, it's prohibited, you mustn't smoke indoors in public places. So you mustn't smoke in bars, in pubs, in museums. You mustn't smoke on public transport. You mustn't smoke in restaurants or cafes. You mustn't smoke in football stadiums, for example. Also, you mustn't break the law. This is an obvious one. And you mustn't be rude to people in authority, like a policeman. And don't have to. What you don't have to do in the UK. Remember, with don't have to, it is something that is not obligatory, but is possible, okay? So if I say you don't have to do it, means it's not obligatory to do it, But if you want to do it, you can do it. For example, in London, you don't have to speak English always because there are many languages spoken. So if you want to speak English, of course, you can. But as you can see on this map, these are each colour represents a language in each area of London. And you can see the most popular second language in each area of London. So you can see here, for example, in Southwark, the most popular second language is Spanish, and in Lambeth is Portuguese. So because of this, maybe you can speak Spanish in London. But if you want to speak English, of course, you can and you should to practice. And outside of London, there are fewer people who speak other languages. So you have to speak English. Okay, maybe if you go to a pub and you don't like beer, you don't have to drink beer. There are other options. Or if you go to the coast, if you go to the sea, you don't have to swim in the sea like these people. Maybe they're crazy. Because often it is very cold in the sea. So you don't have to swim. But if you want to swim, of course you can. It's not prohibited. Okay, so thank you for listening. There are some recommendations about London. Things you should, shouldn't, must, mustn't, have to, and don't have to do. So thank you for listening. Maybe you can use this advice if you visit London.